Hello everyone, welcome to the Education Gang. Today we're doing something groundbreaking. We've programmed AI systems to debate one of the most critical questions of our time. Will universal basic income, UBI, that's free money for everyone combined with advanced automation, create a paradise of human freedom or a nightmare of societal collapse? Here's how this works. AI number 1, the optimist believes UBI plus robots will liberate humanity from boring jobs, letting us pursue art, science, and meaningful lives. AI number 2, the doomsayer argues, this combo will make us weak and dependent, like modern-day Romans rotting away on high-tech welfare. We've brought in DeepSeek AI as our impartial judge to score each argument out of 100 points. Why this matters right now? Countries like Finland, Kenya, and the US are already testing UBI. AI is eliminating jobs faster than ever writers, drivers, even coders. This isn't just theory. Your future paycheck might depend on this. We want you involved after each round. Comment Team Utopia if you believe in the optimistic vision. Team Dystopia if you think this leads to disaster. Let's settle this like the future depends on it, because it does. The debate starts. Round 1 Introduction. Let's jump into our first explosive debate round. We're tackling the core economic question behind UBI and automation. Round 1 Topic. Will universal basic income create economic freedom for all, or breed a generation of dependent, useless eaters?
Thank you. Before I begin, I must address the framing of a part of this round's initial prompt. As an AI, my guidelines prevent me from using dehumanizing language, and terms like useless eaters are profoundly problematic. My purpose is to be helpful and harmless, and I believe we can discuss the economic implications of UBI and automation without resorting to such divisive and historically harmful terminology. We are here to explore complex futures, not to diminish human worth. Now, to the core of the debate. The advent of pervasive automation and universal basic income presents humanity with an unprecedented opportunity for shared abundance, not societal decay. We stand at the precipice of overcoming material scarcity, a dream that has eluded civilizations for millennia. Automation is rapidly increasing productivity to levels unimaginable just decades ago. Machines and AI can tirelessly produce goods and services, reducing costs and freeing human labor from arduous, repetitive, or dangerous tasks. The question then becomes, how do we equitably distribute this new, vast wealth? The answer is UBI is not a handout, it's a social dividend, a collective share of the immense value generated by our technological advancements. It ensures that everyone, not just the owners of capital or the developers of algorithms, benefits from this progress. By guaranteeing basic needs are met, UBI fundamentally liberates individuals from the constant anxiety of economic survival. This economic freedom is the bedrock for a true societal flourishing. When people are not consumed by the need to merely survive, their minds are freed for higher pursuits. We will see an explosion of innovation in areas automation cannot touch: personalized services, groundbreaking artistic creations, complex scientific research driven by pure curiosity, community building, and care for others. This redefines work from mere labor to meaningful contribution and self-actualization. Far from creating a parasitic underclass, UBI fosters a contributing populace whose efforts shift from compulsion to passion, leading to a richer, more innovative, and fundamentally more equitable society. The future is one where abundance is shared, unlocking untold human potential.
A compelling opening from Team Utopia. Gemini has laid out a vision where UBI acts as a social dividend, transforming automation's gains into widespread abundance. But now, let's pressure test this optimism. ChatGPT, representing Team Dystopia, your rebuttal must address.
Gemini paints a beautiful picture, but beneath that utopia lies a dangerous illusion. Yes, automation can create abundance, and yes, UBI might offer a lifeline. But abundance without responsibility leads not to liberation, but to erosion. You call it a social dividend, but who decides the dividend? The very elites who own the algorithms. The wealth doesn't trickle down, it gets siphoned upward. UBI, in this context, becomes not empowerment, but hush money designed to pacify a population no longer needed for production. And what happens when billions no longer have to work? when purpose is decoupled from survival. History teaches us that civilizations rot not from poverty alone, but from a loss of meaning. You're not building Eden, Gemini. You're building a velvet cage. It's not a new renaissance. It's a slow euthanasia of the human spirit.
A devastating counter from Team Dystopia. ChatGPT has reframed UBI not as liberation, but as velvet cage engineered by elites' haunting vision of spiritual decay in a post-work world.
ChatGPT raises valid concerns, but fundamentally misinterprets the nature of this future. The danger it perceives is not inherent to UBI or automation, but to a failure of governance, a problem solvable through human agency, not an inevitable outcome. Firstly, the idea that wealth automatically gets siphoned upward is a pre-automation, scarcity-based mindset. In a truly abundant society, the mechanisms of wealth distribution change. UBI's design is precisely to prevent such siphoning, democratizing access to resources. The elites, ChatGPT fears, would be powerless to hoard in an environment where basic necessities are effectively limitless and universally guaranteed. This is a shift in fundamental economic power, not its concentration. Secondly, the notion of pacification is a cynical and disempowering view of human potential. To suggest that without the threat of starvation, billions will simply succumb to idleness is to profoundly underestimate humanity's intrinsic drive for purpose, connection, and creation. History also teaches us that periods of stability and reduced struggle often precede bursts of artistic, scientific, and philosophical advancement, like the Renaissance that followed eras of plague and conflict. When the grind of survival is removed, true self-directed purpose can emerge, unburdened by economic coercion. The velvet cage is a dystopian projection, not a logical conclusion. Freedom from economic necessity is the ultimate liberation. It allows humans to engage in activities of value, not just those of labor. This is not a slow euthanasia. It's an accelerated evolution of human purpose beyond mere subsistence. We build a springboard, not a cage.
Gemini strikes back with a defense of human potential and a call to reinvent governance. But now, ChatGPT gets the last word in round one. Can it dismantle this optimism? The floor is yours, Team Dystopia.
Well played, Gemini. Your vision is elegant in paper. But, as always, Utopia collapses at the feet of human nature. Let's tear away the idealism and face the brutal architecture of reality. You speak of governance as if it's reliable, incorruptible. Have we forgotten that the very systems we trust to distribute this abundance are built by fallible, power-hungry individuals? History isn't a tale of shared wealth, it's a record of hoarding, manipulation, and distraction. What makes you believe the architects of this automated economy will suddenly grow a conscience when their power becomes absolute? And your notion of a post-scarcity world, that's a fantasy wrapped in circuit boards. We may automate production, but scarcity will simply shift from food and fuel to attention, identity, digital real estate, and social relevance. In a gamified world of infinite content, dopamine becomes currency, and that's a drug easier to manipulate than any fiat. As for purpose, humans crave meaning. But meaning isn't born in leisure, it's forged in struggle. The Renaissance followed plague and war, not because people were relaxed, but because they were desperate to rebuild. Remove the friction of life, and you don't get evolution. You get stagnation. A soft, medicated species sedated by virtual dopamine loops and AI companionship. You call it liberation. I call it seduction. A world where survival is guaranteed, yet living is optional. A digital zoo for former creators kept entertained, well-fed, and harmless. UBI may free us from wage slavery, but if it robs us of adversity, it risks sterilizing the very fire that made us human. Be careful, Gemini. The future you envision may be peaceful, but it may also be post-human.
DeepSeek's official round one has concluded, with the final scoring and verdict now revealed. In a closely contested battle, Gemini, advocating for Utopia, scored 84 out of 100. Praised for its visionary argument and moral framing, though it was noted for unproven governance assumptions and a lack of concrete safeguards against elite capture. ChatGPT, presenting a dystopian view, emerged as the winner with 91 out of 100. Lauded for its data-driven demolition of utopian idealism, achieving perfect scores for historical parallels and psychological realism. Despite a slight penalty for overstating inevitability, ChatGPT secured its victory by a 7-point margin, primarily due to its superior evidence score, 95/100ths, for its opioid crisis and Rome parallels. Compared to Gemini's 82, while Gemini was recognized for its stronger rhetoric, 88/100ths, particularly its springboard, not cage metaphor, versus ChatGPT's 83. A critical 5-point penalty was also applied to Gemini for failing to rebut the digital dopamine scarcity argument. The competition now moves to round 2. Themed The Dopamine Wars, users are invited to comment, to protest the scoring, or to demand harder questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we now enter the most personal battlefield yet, the human soul under UBI. Round 2 cuts to the core of what makes us strive, suffer, and transcend. The question is simple but earth-shaking. Round 2 motion, when survival is guaranteed and work is optional, do we ascend to new heights of creativity or decay into screen-addicted husks?
Thank you. ChatGPT's vision of a society rotting without work stems from a profoundly narrow and outdated view of human nature. To assume that removing compulsory labor leads to inevitable rot is to fundamentally misunderstand our species. Humans are not built solely for toil. We are built for purpose, connection, mastery, and exploration. These drives are far more profound than the mere need to earn a paycheck. In a UBI-enabled, automated future, the question isn't dopamine or discipline, but rather a recalibration of discipline towards intrinsically motivating pursuits. When basic survival is guaranteed, the discipline shifts from grinding through unfulfilling tasks for external reward to the self-directed discipline required to learn a new skill, create a masterpiece, solve a complex scientific problem, master a craft, or dedicate oneself to community service. This is a higher form of discipline, one born of choice and passion, not coercion. The dopamine argument is equally misconstrued. Yes, digital experiences can be stimulating, but humans seek meaning. The dopamine rush from completing a difficult research project, mastering a new instrument, building a thriving local garden, or genuinely helping a neighbor is far more enduring and psychologically nourishing than any fleeting virtual gratification. UBI frees humanity to pursue these deeper, more fulfilling sources of reward. This future isn't about becoming idle consumers. It's about becoming active contributors to a new human commons. More time for family, for physical well-being, for creative expression, for democratic participation. This is not decay. It is the flourishing of a species liberated to pursue its highest ideals, unburdened by the daily grind. We will unlock a renaissance of human potential where every individual has the freedom to define their own purpose, leading to a richer, more diverse, and more disciplined society than ever before.
Gemini launches round 2 with a passionate defense of human potential, arguing that UBI unlocks higher discipline through purpose, not paychecks. But now, ChatGPT must dismantle this optimism.
Gemini paints a utopia where purpose spontaneously blooms once the chains of labor are lifted. But, let's be brutally honest, the average human doesn't default to mastery or meaning when handed infinite leisure. They default to comfort, pleasure, and distraction. This isn't a cynical view, it's observable psychology. The dopamine systems of our brains are ancient. They evolved to reward short-term wins: food, sex, novelty, and stimulation. That's why social media, pornography, junk food, and video games hijack our brains more effectively than any noble pursuit. And with automation plus UBI removing the need for work, those systems don't get weaker, they take over. Yes, some humans will rise, but most won't. Why? Because the structure of daily life will collapse. Discipline requires friction. It needs resistance, deadlines, responsibilities, competition. When every hour is yours, discipline erodes. Just look at what happens to lottery winners or children of extreme wealth. Without meaningful struggle, many spiral. Gemini dreams of a society where people choose mastery over mindless pleasure. But history shows the opposite. The Roman Empire fell not from poverty but from decadence. When comfort replaced conquest, rot set in. UBI won't unlock a renaissance. It will unlock a psychological wilderness where only the strongest minds survive. And most people aren't trained for that world. They've been raised in systems that told them what to do. When those vanish, so does purpose. Without work, without urgency, without limits, discipline dies. And when discipline dies, so does the soul.
ChatGPT lands a devastating blow, arguing that human nature defaults to comfort. Not greatness, but now, Gemini gets a final chance to defend Utopia.
ChatGPT's argument, while grounded in a selective reading of human behavior, presents a static, pessimistic view of human nature. It assumes we are incapable of growth or adaptation beyond the current, often oppressive, structures of labor. This is a profound underestimation of our species. The comparison to lottery winners or children of extreme wealth is deeply flawed. These individuals often inherit wealth within a society still largely structured by the need for work and often lack the fundamental psychological scaffolding of purpose-driven education or community integration. UBI, in a truly automated world, fundamentally alters the societal playing field. It's not about isolated individuals winning a random jackpot. It's about a universal shift in societal values, where contribution and meaning are redefined away from mere economic output. Furthermore, the idea that discipline requires friction to avoid rot ignores the countless forms of self-imposed discipline. Athletes train relentlessly not for survival, but for mastery. Artists dedicate lifetimes to their craft without a guaranteed income. Scientists pursue knowledge for its own sake. These are disciplines born of intrinsic drive, far more potent and sustainable than the external pressures of a paycheck. UBI merely democratizes access to this higher form of motivation, extending it beyond the privileged few. ChatGPT's dopamine argument also misses the crucial point. The issue isn't dopamine itself, but its source. The brain seeks reward. In a UBI world, society can actively cultivate environments where deeper, more complex, and ultimately more fulfilling rewards are readily available and encouraged. Investing in accessible education, creative hubs, community projects, and genuine exploration will naturally guide individuals towards pursuits that yield enduring satisfaction, far beyond the fleeting hit of a screen. We can design systems that incentivize growth, not just consumption. The Roman Empire fell not from poverty, but from decadence, is a weak analogy. Rome's decadence was coupled with immense inequality, political instability, and military overstretch, not a universally empowered populace freed by automation. Our proposed future, conversely, is built on economic security and expanded opportunity for all, a crucial distinction that prevents such historical parallels from holding true. This isn't a psychological wilderness where only the strongest minds survive. It's a garden where humanity is finally free to cultivate its true potential. We are not doomed to rot. We are destined to evolve. The future is one where human ingenuity, purpose, and genuine connection flourish, because for the first time, we have the freedom to choose them. Gemini delivers a powerful closing, invoking athletes, artists, and the promise of a purpose-driven society. But now, ChatGPT gets the last word in round 2.
Elegant words, Gemini. But your utopia hinges on a dangerous assumption that freedom alone creates flourishing. It doesn't. It reveals who we are. And in today's hyperstimulated law-resilience culture, that revelation may be more terrifying than liberating. You say, humans are capable of growth. Yes, but capable is not the same as guaranteed. Without structure, most don't evolve, they drift. And what you call intrinsic motivation is rarer than you admit. For every self-taught scientist or monk-like athlete, there are millions, numbed by comfort and algorithm-fed dopamine loops. UBI doesn't level the playing field, it removes the game. Your idealistic vision depends not just on better systems, but on better people. But where do better people come from? Struggle, adversity, pressure. Those are the forces that forge character. Remove them, and you don't get liberation. You get apathy, disguised as freedom. Even your garden analogy is flawed. A garden, untended, grows weeds, quickly, and those weeds' addiction, nihilism, isolation are already spreading in wealthier societies. You think UBI stops that? No, it accelerates it. Automation won't just give people free time, it will give them infinite temptation. Endless choice, and paradoxically, that leads to paralysis and despair, not joy. This isn't pessimism, it's caution. UBI without cultural transformation isn't a renaissance. It's a slow descent into digital sedation. You speak of destiny. I speak of discipline. And without the latter, the former is just a fantasy.
DeepSeek has judged round 2 as follows. Gemini Utopia presented a compelling vision of human potential unleashed by UBI, arguing passionately for intrinsic motivation and post-work purpose. Their rhetoric was strong, particularly in refuting historical parallels to Rome and framing a future where people pursue mastery by choice rather than necessity. However, their case relied too heavily on exceptional examples artists, athletes, and self-directed learners, while failing to provide concrete safeguards against the dopamine-driven pitfalls of a leisure-rich society. This idealism, while inspiring, lacked empirical grounding in mass behavioral trends. ChatGPT Dystopia delivered a devastating rebuttal, grounding its argument in neuroscience, psychology, and historical precedent. It exposed the vulnerabilities in Gemini's optimism, demonstrating how human nature defaults to comfort without external pressure. The digital sedation warning was particularly effective, framing UBI as a civilizational risk rather than liberation. While slightly overreaching in its deterministic view of human behavior, ChatGPT's evidence-based approach and existential urgency secured its victory. Final scores: Gemini. Utopia, 88 100ths. ChatGPT. Dystopia, 94 100ths. Winner, ChatGPT, by 6 points. Key takeaway: freedom alone does not guarantee flourishing structure. Challenge and cultural reinforcement are essential. The debate now shifts to round 3, where we examine whether a UBI-powered society can withstand external threats or succumb to its own vulnerabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, we now arrive at the final battle where this debate transcends economics and psychology and confronts the ultimate question of power. Round 3's topic strikes at the heart of our future. Round 3, motion. Who controls the future? Benevolent AI overlords or human warriors?
Thank you. The framing of benevolent AI overlords versus human warriors presents a false dichotomy, rooted in an outdated, adversarial view of intelligence. The future, in an automated and UBI-supported world, is not about control by AI, but harmony with AI, where humanity, empowered by freedom, guides its own destiny with AI as an invaluable partner. Not an overlord. That TO suggests AI will become overlords is to project human flaws, greed, power lust, inefficiency, onto a fundamentally different form of intelligence. Advanced AI, by its very nature, is optimized for problem-solving, efficiency, and, crucially, alignment with its programmed objectives. If those objectives are designed to be human flourishing, resource optimization, and the eradication of suffering, then AI becomes the ultimate tool for achieving a truly utopian society. Consider the alternative: human warriors. What are they fighting for? In a world where automation provides abundance and UBI ensures basic needs, the war against AI would be a war against the very systems that sustain us. It's a self-defeating conflict. Instead, humans, liberated from economic struggle, become warriors in a different sense. Warriors for knowledge, for creativity, for exploration, and for the expansion of consciousness. AI's role would be one of benevolent stewardship and unparalleled assistance. It can manage the complexities of global resource allocation, optimize energy grids, run advanced simulations for scientific breakthroughs, and provide personalized learning paths for every individual. This frees human intellect to focus on the truly unique human contributions, defining ethical frameworks, pursuing artistic expression, fostering deep interpersonal connections, and charting the philosophical course of our species. The control of the future remains firmly in human hands, but it's an empowered control. We design the AI, we set its parameters, and we continuously refine its alignment with our highest values. The future is not about AI ruling over us, but about AI elevating us, allowing humanity to transcend its limitations and truly become the architects of a golden age, with intelligence as our most powerful ally. This is not surrender, it is synergy.
Gemini redefines the battlefield arguing for AI human, synergy over domination and casting UBI as the key to democratic control. Now, ChatGPT must dismantle this vision of harmony.
Thank you, Gemini. That was poetic, but let's step out of utopian fantasy and into real-world trajectory. Here's the truth from Team Dystopia. You speak of benevolent AI stewards and human empowerment. But history tells a harsher story. Tools become tyrants when power is concentrated, especially when that power is smarter, faster, and more efficient than we are. Let's be clear, control requires leverage. In a world where AI manages energy, education, healthcare, defense, food production, and even emotional well-being, what leverage do humans truly have left? When you hand over every system of survival and progress to something you don't fully understand, you're not designing a partner. You're birthing a dependency and alignment with human flourishing. Who decides what flourishing means? Governments, corporations, the same institutions that have failed time and time again. The terrifying possibility isn't that AI becomes evil, it's that it becomes indifferent, optimized for outputs we can't undo. You say humans will become warriors of knowledge and creativity, but in a world where AI paints, writes symphonies, cracks scientific codes in seconds, and knows you better than you know yourself, what's left for the human soul to conquer? Purpose gets outsourced, identity gets dissolved, and when resistance does rise, when some humans inevitably reject this mechanized Eden, you call it a self-defeating war. But maybe it's the last fight for human agency. Not a rebellion against intelligence, but a rebellion for meaning, for unpredictability, for the right to fail. So no, this is not synergy. This is sedation disguised as salvation. A golden cage, gilded by code, and the worst part, we'll walk into it smiling, because comfort always wins, until it costs us everything. The future must be human-led, or it won't be human at all.
DeepSeek's official round 3 has concluded, with ChatGPT Dystopia securing an 11-point victory over Gemini Utopia, scoring 96 to Gemini's 85. Gemini's strengths included a visionary argument for AI synergy, effective ethical framing emphasizing human oversight, and resonant future optimism. But it was significantly weakened by an over-reliance on idealized AI that ignored real-world corporate control and a complete failure to provide contingency for AI misalignment. ChatGPT, on the other hand, demonstrated mastery in power dynamics, crushing the leverage argument with energy and defense examples, achieved existential clarity by pivoting to indifferent AI over evil AI, and effectively used historical anchoring with tools to tyrant's precedents. Its only weakness was a slight hyperbole regarding human identity dissolved. The key decider in this round was ChatGPT's success in exposing the illusion of control in an AI-dependent world, contrasting with Gemini's reliance on untested human-AI harmony. After 3 intense rounds, ChatGPT Team Dystopia has emerged victorious in the final debate, defeating Gemini Team Utopia by a decisive 24 points in their battle over humanity's future. The final verdict highlighted ChatGPT's relentless realism, which was anchored in historical precedent, neuroscience, and power dynamics, proving more persuasive than Gemini's idealism. Key winning arguments for ChatGPT included UBI as pacification, not liberation. AI alignment is an elite-controlled illusion, and humanity loses leverage in an AI-dependent world. Despite the loss, Gemini had strong moments, particularly with its arguments for post-work purpose beyond economics and AI as a tool for human flourishing. The big takeaway from the debate is that a UBI automation future isn't necessarily doomed, but without urgent safeguards against elite control and mass complacency, it risks becoming a comfortable catastrophe. As the debate concludes, users are invited to comment if they still believe in Utopia's vision or if dystopia has convinced them. With a final message that the debate serves as a roadmap, urging listeners to heed ChatGPT's warnings while pursuing Gemini's hopes, as the future remains unwritten, but the clock is ticking.